Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I'm the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, the master of the deceptive art, and I return to you once again as the shameless voice of the vasectomites. And today I wanted us to talk about an emotion that I'm not very familiar with, but I have had a brush, or at least a brush up against it, once or twice in my 100-year existence. And that is the strange and unfamiliar feeling of guilt. To be honest with you, I had to search for the real meaning of this word, just to be certain that you and I are experiencing the same thing, right? That you and I are having coinciding experiences or coinciding feelings when we say or use that or the word guilt or say that we feel guilty, right? So when you say you feel guilty, you mean to tell me that you feel pain from an emotion, a self-conscious emotion that arises within you when you believe that you have done something wrong, in inverted commas. Either you've done something wrong or you've caused harm to another, or worse yet, you violated somebody else's standard, or worse still, you have violated your own standards. I suppose to some extent we all have some meaningful experience, or we have all had a sense of these feelings, but to varying degrees and for varying lengths of time, of course. But rather than tell you a blatant, bold-faced lie about how I, a lifelong practitioner of the deceptive arts, practically since I'm 19, 20 years old, when I first picked up the art of war by the grandmaster of the deceptive arts himself, I would never dream of telling you a lie and say to you that I have never, ever lived up to or wanted to live up to somebody else's standard. That there was a moment in my life where I never feared disappointing another person because that would just be untrue. I can name many people that I wouldn't have wanted to disappoint, to let them down at one time or another. I mean, from counterparts to parents, teachers, lecturers, professors, sports coaches, trainers, senseis, or just mentors, right? People who believed in me, people who saw something in me, people who listened to me and thought, hey, this guy might be onto something. People who may have heard me say freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. Go freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. You know, there are those people that I don't want to disappoint, right? Because I don't want you waking up one day and realizing that, yes, in fact, you are a knee bender and you want to bend that knee, and now you want to start a family with your counterpart, but the ancient one prevented you from having kids. Now you have to spend more money on a surgery when what you should have done is just frozen like 500 million sperm, which is nothing. You freeze 500 million sperm, you have peace of mind, you can get your vasectomy. Because if you do decide to bend that knee, I assure you, you're going to decide to unbend that knee at a tremendous cost, right? But I don't want to let those people down. I don't want the men who choose to get a vasectomy and then choose to have kids and then want to choose to have a vasectomy again and then choose to have kids again. I don't want those people, the undecided. The undecided. I don't want those to be like, well, I'm undecided now. I don't have options. No, because that's a disappointment. And even the undecided have been considered in this equation. You can, I mean, how many times can you unmake your mind? 500 million times? You're going to decide to be a dad on and off 500 million times? No, no, no. I think 100 million is more than enough, but get yourself 500 million options, right? So you are not disappointed, right? There are also those people who invested in me, not just financially, emotionally, spiritually, but there are those people who take the time out to listen to this message and receive it, even though they've heard it again and again and again. And I don't want to disappoint those people too. I don't want to disappoint those people too. People who took a risk on me, people who went ahead and froze their sperm, got a vasectomy, people who gave me a shot and then watched me fumble around the internet trying to put things together, and then gave me a second chance when I reformatted, and then a third chance when I rebranded. The list is endless. The list of people that I don't want to disappoint or never wanted to disappoint or didn't want to disappoint even currently is endless. It's almost as long, but not quite as long as the list of people that I have betrayed and stabbed in the back and sent to their own demise. That list is tremendous, right? That list is tremendous. But on the other list of people that I don't want to disappoint is myself, right? I'm one of the people that I don't want to disappoint. Even the memory of my own mentor, Sun Tzu, who's been dead 2,500 years. I don't want to let down that memory by suddenly telling the whole truth, not having no schemes, not having any aces up my sleeve. No, 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 no. We're not doing that. We're not doing that, right? But regardless of how the situation played out, or how long, this guilt felt, or how long it took to get over it, and how frustrating the feeling and frustration of feeling bad, having done something, having disappointed someone, however long that took, however long, how hard that was. After all was said and done, after everything has happened, here I am. I still remain. He who remains. But recently, however, I realized and I found that I haven't felt that particular emotion in a very long time. I felt the deep need for secrecy. I felt a tense paranoia, right? I've searched for avenues of revenge. But it's been a long time since I've felt the need to hold up anybody's standards other than my own. A very long time. I not only have a deficit of guilt, I also have an enduring nonchalance and indifference. And I wondered, what could this sense of nonchalance come from? And after searching my soul, I know exactly where it came from. It came from the internet. But for a while, I thought perhaps it's come from the maturity or the acceptance of maturity or the maturity of acceptance, right? And coming to terms with reality and all that I know of humanities and its vile, crude, senseless, illogical, knee bending ways, benderisms. Perhaps it's not having to spend my time with a counterpart, hours and hours of my life, managing the senseless ego of an inherent loser with no power for accomplishment. And if you thought I was going to take a moment to give even one moment of credit to these counterparts, I'm telling you, you've come to the wrong place for that. I have no remorse towards these people at all. But then I thought perhaps it was the vasectomy itself, right? Perhaps it was the procedure that converted me and removed not just you know my tocophobia, the fear of having kids, but also it removed my sense of guilt, the empathy that has weighed me down so much for so many years as a confessed narcissist. There's nothing that really bothers me more than having the feeling that I'm feeling something for somebody else that's really none of my business and I shouldn't be feeling it, but there I am feeling it. But then I'm also feeling the sensation of like, why are you feeling this? Right? Perhaps it was the vasectomy. Perhaps it was diving deep and daily into the deceptive arts, meditating so many hours on the teachings and practices of the master of the grand master himself of the deceptive arts, Sun Tzu. Or perhaps it was the time travel, moving so forward into my own destination, arriving at the end of time where the sanctum of solitude is. And thereby seeing it all unfold, realizing that almost all of humanity is going to procreate. And everyone is going to have these convergences in time, these jump off points that are irreversible. Now you see, then I came to the understanding that it could be all of these, or none of these at all. It could be all of them together, each of them individually, or none of them at all. You must understand that naturally, as a leader, I can be somewhat critical of people in a very specific, detailed, and concise manner and delineation. This is due to my station in life, where it is my duty to help people rise to their fullest potential, at least up to where the standard requires them to be, right? In order to be proficient, in order to grow in their career, in order to advance, in order to be skillful enough to be able to carry the responsibilities of these various areas of career, right? But but as critical as I am of others, I'm mostly just as critical of myself and my own outcomes. Despite understanding that the only person that I can control is myself, there are moments where I have to be responsible for not just my own outcomes, but the outcomes of others. And I get very frustrated when people don't work on their own outcomes and put me in a position where I now have to respond to explain this individual's incompetence, when not only was he informed, you were told, it was demonstrated to you, you were tested on it, you did it yourself, you proved that you were capable of doing the task because you've done it not once, not twice, but several times. And then came the moment for you to perform, and you just didn't have the desire, and it caused failure. And now I must justify your failure, which of course means you're going to get punished, right? Because I'm going to get it and it's going to roll down. That's what we call the trickle down effect, right? That's what they mean by trickle down. Despite my harsh appraisal of my outcomes and realities, it is my own reality now that I scrutinize the most and have always scrutinized the most. And while I often dwell on the concessions of the past, right? Just sitting thinking about the compromises, the expenditures, the trips, the meals, the dates, the gifts for others, right? I have to realize that somehow I maneuvered myself carefully, strategically, to end up here. A free and liberated vasectomite who has all of his options. All of my reproductive biological options exist. I have 1 billion sperm saved up. And yet I still cannot get a counterpart inseminated and pregnant the traditional and unsafe, unreliable way. To try that is to fail. I loathe the times that I had to calm my spirit with these counterparts and ignore my instinct at blatancy and spitefulness. The personal cost and toll, not just financially, but mentally, physically, spiritual, intellectually, was is to me now unreasonable. And it still infuriates me somewhat when I look back and scrutinize the outcomes. But then I come to the point of saying to myself, that infuriation, that anger, right, that I hold, I used that anger to elevate myself and become a vasectomite, to put myself beyond the possibility of defeat in child support court, beyond the possibility of defeat in a civil court where they're going to sort out your divorce, right? Beyond the possibility of lawyer fees, beyond the possibility of tuition, healthcare, and paying bills, right? I still look back and think, man, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? You know? And then I come to the point, back again, back and forth, back and forth. I'm here now. And what would be the point of carrying all that around me, all that hostility around, inside me, through me, on me, with me, if it doesn't fuel my deceptive arts, right? This guilt, this frustration from a past that I discussed, which quite frankly was a long, long time ago. A long, long time ago. And this is what really got me to this point. I saw a meme the other day online from the interactive consciousness of humanity, otherwise known as the internet, from a counterpart who had a puzzled and annoyed face, right? It was a small video, a small meme, but she had this puzzled and annoyed face that she kept, squinting in weird ways. You ladies need to stop squinting your face. That squint thing doesn't work so cool after 30, I promise you. You just look like you know, your great grandfather, man. You look like your male relatives. Like generally you don't, but when you squint your face, you look like when your father's trying to be serious about something, right? And then just then you make a joke and then he turns and squints his face. That's what you look like when you squint your face. Like most of the time, women look a little bit like this parent and a little bit like that parent, right? So you look like you got some of your mother's features, some of your father's features, which makes you kind of like a unique person. But then when you squint your face, it's all your father's features. Very masculine. That's why people say certain women can become masculine. It means like when you do certain expressions, they highlight more of your father's features than your mother's beautiful features. Right? It's terrible. It's terrible on the female. But anyway, she had that look, right? That puzzled male look on her face. And but it wasn't the look on her face. It was the caption she had with the meme, and it said something to the effect, I don't remember. I just moved on, but I moved on. But then it stuck with me. The caption, the words, stuck with me. She said, "When you get a call from your ex after 5 years, awkward." And I thought, man, that's true. That's true. If I reached out to the counterpart with the anger that I bear, an anger that will never go away. It's subsided, but it will never go away, right? And by the way, I just got a small taste. I just got a small taste of what men go through in the dark dimension. Barely anything that you guys had to deal with, and I couldn't handle it. I'm still resentful to this day. I can only imagine how enraged I would be if I had to give up my house, my car, my retirement to this person, to this ingrate. No way. You know? But that meme got me to realize that even if I had the opportunity to express this disdain to the counterpart, which by the way I haven't. I just got up, left, and took my disdain with me. Never said a word to this person, ever. Years. I'm telling you, I don't speak to not one single counterpart. Every woman that I engage with, or counterpart that I will engage with in the future, is going to be completely brand new. I do not engage with exes at all. And it's not a matter of, oh, aren't you curious? No, I detest them. I detest them. I hate everything about them. Sometimes I'll walk past like a Sephora or something, and they'll have like feminine scents, and I'll have a scent that will have like elements of something that a counterpart had in her scent. It's not the exact same scent, but there's an element of it, and I'll just be sick to my stomach. I'll just be sick to my stomach. I detest them. I move on very easily from exes, and it's really not something that I have a problem with in my romance wars, in my relationships. Exes coming in and out, no, that's not happening. That's not happening. But even if I had the details of the counterpart, what would I even say? What would I say, right? After I mean, like, after like what? 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, you know? What would you even say? Would I talk about my feelings that I had, the resentment that I harbored before I got a vasectomy? What would be the point of that? Would I talk with her as if it was water under the bridge, let bygones be bygones. We talk like old friends about all the money that I spent on nonsense before I got my vasectomy? Before I got my vasectomy? Really? Is that what we're doing? We're going back that far? Nah, I'm not going back that far. I don't travel. I only time travel that far back for memories and anecdotal things. I don't dwell in the pre-vasectomy years. Oh no. No, 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 no. They just bring me anger and frustration you know but then I wonder, would I come to the point where maybe I apologize for all my many 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 lies, my many deceptions, my many misdirections, my many confusions, all the many times that I muddied the waters and muddied them more? Would I really apologize for that, for all the things that I did before my vasectomy? Am I going to carry guilt around from before the vasectomy? I think not. I think not. You know, what would be the point? What would be the point? She's probably moved on, met other people, had a breakup, dated, broke up, got back with the ex, dated, broke up again with other people. And now here I am, from what, decades later, saying you betrayed me. She's pregnant with another man's baby, and they've been together for years. Imagine that. They are together for years, building a whole life, and here you are talking about, I bought you brunch that one time. What? That's why she'll have that confused look on her face. Like, wait, where's all this coming from? Or I come in talking about how sorry I am, about things that I did, how I should have been more honest and more open. 10 years later, 15 years later, you guys want to come and talk about what happened in college, some of you, what happened in high school? No, man. Get a vasectomy. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. Then you don't have to worry about these things. You know? Just imagine that. Just imagine that. What a waste of time. You know? What good, I ask myself, would feeling guilty for anything do for me now? After a vasectomy, after completely disconnecting myself from humanity, what real purpose would that serve for me now? Like, if I told a deception that benefited me, what would feeling bad about it do? You know? But to answer this question, perhaps today's edification will help us unpack some of the causes of our guilt, you and I. And we can begin to wash it away completely, so that we can be free from these mental ties, truly free to practice the deceptive arts to infinity and beyond. So here's today's article: How to Forgive Yourself. 7 tips on how to deal with guilt and to let go. This was written by Dr. Anthony Santore. Forgive me if I've mispronounced your name, Dr. Santore. I was published on the 19th of September 2025, and it comes from the website thriveworks.com. This is not the full article. There is an introductory passage that came along with this article. But after much consideration, I found that what I was really looking for lay further down. So there's an introduction and then an introduction to the second part. So I just went straight to the second part. However, you can find the actual article on this link, and you can read all that information for yourself. But it's not that the information is not useful or nuanced. I just found that it wouldn't add much more value to the video than what we are about to engage in. I'm actually thinking of just moving in that direction, like just keeping the information that is most useful to the video rather than just like, because there are times where I just speed read through like inconsequential things when actually what I want to discuss is a little bit further on. So it just depends. It just depends on the edification, I suppose. And I will treat each one with the respect that it's due, right? So it's not that I'll be skipping through all kinds of information. Only where I find the information is either repetitive or superfluous. 7 tips to learn to forgive yourself and deal with guilt. Dr. Santori begins by saying if you're struggling to move past failures or find it difficult to let go of past mistakes and guilt, I can be like that of myself. Really, I can be very self critical. I think people think that narcissists don't really criticize themselves. We're narcissists, we criticize ourselves the most, right? We really don't look to others all that much, right? There are steps you can take to foster growth and healing. Interesting. I every time I hear the word healing, I just think of a counterpart, right? Want to make me laugh. What are you healing from? While learning to forgive yourself and release guilt is challenging, these tips can be helpful. Can be a helpful starting point, I beg your pardon, on your journey towards self-compassion and personal growth. Let's see what the tips are, right? It's things like this. It's things like this, right? I'm going to read this part again. These are the things that I just speed read through just to get through it, right? While learning to forgive yourself and release guilt is challenging, these tips helpful, can be a helpful starting point on your journey towards self-compassion and blah, blah, blah. Like, this is the kind of thing that I end up just, you know what, let me just get to the crux of the information. Sometimes the information is very nuanced and enlightening, and it paves the way for you to read the reading in the way that the author intended it, right? Sometimes it's just an introduction. It's just a hello, right? And I found that earlier part was just a very long hello. Number one, talk about it. Is that what I'm doing right now? Expressing it and therefore letting it out? Or are we talking about it together? Or am I talking at you? When it comes to the past, silence can make things even harder to deal with. The weight of pretending and avoiding guilt is difficult to carry and often not a sustainable practice in the long run. Set yourself Set yourself from holding it all in and talk about what's tearing you up inside. Express your emotions to a counselor, mentor, or friend you can trust. Yeah, you can tell me about it. You can definitely trust me. Forgiveness starts with being honest and vulnerable about who you are, the good, the good and the bad, so that you need to say and allow yourself to seek support. I say know thyself, man. I find that I feel guilty most of all for knowing something wasn't right for me and holding on anyway. But again, I always go back to this anecdote. It was either that or just the vast potential of getting somebody pregnant. There are moments where I count all the monies that I spent in these romance wars and I ask myself, how much, you know, that process, how much would you give to have gotten this process right the first time? Now, why do I put it like that? Because I discussed in an earlier video the process of invention and how the person who invents things always goes through tremendous hardship to to get to the outcome. Can you imagine the frustration of inventing the first wheel? Making something round with a hole in the middle from stone. How many stones? How many stones did that guy carry on his back? He spent his entire life with stones. And then he got it right one time. And now we have Michelin tires, all kinds of tires, right? The perfect invention that even today we cannot succumb and overcome, right? Now, think of that process and consider that process the same as freezing your sperm and getting a vasectomy combination. Freezing your sperm has existed for a very long time, as did getting vasectomy. But it's not until 2025, 2026 that these two things are now being combined together, right? And I say this because knowing yourself, right? Knowing yourself allows you to work through these things and then get to a point where you can now use things that will make you successful. But getting that right can take time. And talking to other people during the process of invention can derail you, right? It can slow you down. It can move you in and out of other directions. And I think to myself now, how much of that discovery, that invention process, those hard times, that frustration, the difficulty, the money, would I sacrifice? Would I say I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that, I would change this, but risk the certainty of being here now? And I'm telling you, I would happily pay that money again. Just to know that at the end of it, I would have gotten the equation right. I would have figured it out. I would have said, freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. How much is that to me? What value is that to me? For me, keeping it a secret, laying low, not looking to others, looking to myself, knowing who I am, the good, the bad, and the hunchback, right? It was worth it. It was worth it in the end, right? Being able to stand by myself. So I agree about this part of getting to know who you are. I don't agree so much about discussing these issues with other people. You're just giving people ammunition about your concerns, and they will use that against you. And if you think I'm joking, think again. Think again. Consider that carefully. But yeah, that I keep thinking about that process of discovery and how many awesome things have been discovered and how difficult it was, how long it took, a lifetime to get it right. But when you did, you ask yourself, what of that process would you change? And most people say they wouldn't change any of it because it's one thing that leads to another, that leads to another, that leads to another, in a combination of ways that, quite frankly, would be impossible to replicate and duplicate, just for you to come up with these simple words: freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. 5 simple words. Decades of calculations. Would I change those calculations? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is why you gotta let go of that guilt, man. If you ended up in a good situation, regardless of how much you spent, how much you did, how much you sacrificed, if you ended up in a good situation, if whatever you did brought you to this video and got you to hear the words, freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy, and then it clicked, bang, that's the move. Whatever that process was that got you to here, I would suggest, if you're time traveling, I would suggest you either work hard on securing that process or you don't violate it at all, because you may never have heard that message. You may have decided to skip the video right at the intro and never heard the ancient ones say, freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. And then what? Ask yourself that. So, for those that might hear this in the future, or those that are hearing it right now, I want you to know that I wouldn't change not a single thing of the process, just so that I could make sure that you can hear this. And that's as far as I'm going in my contribution in your life. I'm not giving you no money. Definitely not giving you no money. And I'm not giving you no advice on child support neither. You're in child support, good luck, you're on your own. But I can give you one piece of advice, a two-step process. The best single piece of advice: freeze your sperm and get yourself a vasectomy. Be honest with yourself is number two. And also the point that I want to make. It can be easy to think that things we ignore might eventually go away. It sounds nice, but ultimately it's usually untrue. Very powerful words. Acknowledging what happened in your part and your part in it can be the first step to truly letting go. Be honest about how you've messed up. And the consequences of your behavior. Journal out the specific behaviors and actions that are causing you angst. That last bit with the journaling, I think that's for the counterpart, because they don't have their ideas outright. They got to see them play out in front of them first and then process them in hindsight. Know thyself. Know thyself, and I'm going to ask you this question over and over again. Do you want to be a father? And if you are already a father, would you like another child? How would you like to start from scratch tomorrow? Newborn baby, no more sleeping. Baby, sleep 30 minutes, wake up for 5 hours. Sleep 15 minutes, wake up for 6 hours. Sleep 6 hours, is up for 3 days. You ready for all that? Diaper changes, baby milk formula, burping the baby. Oh man, oh man. Not to mention the postpartum depression. Oh, you really want to deal with that? Or you just want to go get a vasectomy? Because married men can get that vasectomy too. You got kids, you can get that. You can freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. It's an endless process. Any man can get it. That's why I rebranded from the bachelor life to the vasectomy life. Because the bachelor life only talks about bachelors, and the vasectomy life talks about you. You have kids. You want another one? Be honest with yourself. You want another kid or you want a vasectomy? I suggest the vasectomy is probably a better choice than another kid. Develop realistic expectations for yourself. This is all about knowing thyself. Know yourself, man, and then liberate yourself from guilt. Know what you want to tolerate, know what you want to deal with, and what you don't. But develop realistic expectations for yourself. I'm very curious about what the good Dr. Anthony Centauri said. It's been a very insightful list with very meaningful details. Evaluate the expectations you and others set for you. Are they healthy? Or are they unrealistic? If you find yourself struggling to measure up, no matter how hard you try, you may need to adjust a few things in your approach to life. Healthy expectations are achievable and fulfilling, not draining and overwhelming. You know, when I think about what I set out to do with the counterpart, which was to, hopefully try to make her happy while I try to make myself happy and avoid getting pregnant, I don't think I was setting a very realistic expectation. At some point, it was gonna become just as expensive maintaining that deception or that perspective of reality as it would have been doing anything else. Eventually, you know, I had no choice. I was going to get to a vasectomy. I don't think I've ever felt overwhelmed in terms of work, productivity, even academia. I may have struggled and faced challenges, even some failures, but I cannot remember saying I'm overwhelmed by this material. I read something and couldn't comprehend it or couldn't learn it, or at the very least couldn't copy or memorize it, right? Which is like really the basic level of study, like just copy and memorize, man. Don't try to be too creative. I don't remember feeling that overwhelmed. The idea of fatherhood, husbandry, parenthood, the dark dimension, that was something that I was never willing wanting to do. No desire for that. And and I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I don't look back and think, man, this outcome is terrible. I think those actions were terrible, but the outcome, well justified. Well justified. And a vasectomy to me is a very realistic expectation. The price is either you get two prices with a vasectomy. You either get it for free or it's $1,550, 1,550 US dollars, right? And it's comparable all over the world. So, it might be a little bit more expensive or a little bit cheaper in your country, but it's there and thereabouts. Any man can achieve that. Any man can absolutely achieve freezing their sperm. You're probably going to enjoy that. Take my word for it. I know I did. And then you can get a vasectomy. You can get one for free and you can get one for 1550. If you freeze your sperm, it's $50 a year. Nothing. You spend more on takeaways a week. Seriously, you know. But know what you can achieve, man. I knew that I could never achieve being fatherhood. Like I have beliefs that I can achieve $1 billion, right? I have delusions of grandeur of achieving extraordinary amounts of money. But as for being a father, being able to pull that off, I have no such delusions. I have no such delusions. I had to accept the situation for what it is, which is really what number four is. Man, this list just rolls on, doesn't it? It just rolls on. Accept it for what it is. You have to accept yourself for who you are. When I discovered that I had tocophobia, and it was only after I had cured it that I realized that what I was suffering from was a rare, severe mental illness, right? A phobia. It's the fear of having kids. It's a real thing. It's called tocophobia, and I suffered from it from my entire life. But I had to accept that I was struggling with this in order to cure it. And the cure for tocophobia is to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. The cure for the fear, the debilitating, heartbreaking fear of having kids with these counterparts, the debilitating, heartbreaking fear of child support, alimony, lawyer fees, losing your retirement, losing your assets, losing your car, losing your house, ending up homeless, destitute, and broke, and then having to pay lawyers for the privilege. If that doesn't sit well with you, then perhaps it's time for you to accept that you too might be suffering from tocophobia or the fear of the dark dimension. And you gotta accept that and also accept the sensible cure. As an imperfect human, well, I'm a vasectomite now, but okay, you will make mistakes in life. So far, so good. You will hurt people sometimes. This is true. You will have regrets. Indeed, I do. It's part of living in a less than perfect world. It's a wonderful world. Well, at least it will be after you get that vasectomy. However, you have a choice. Yes, freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. Either your past will keep you in a rut of guilt and shame, which is what I was talking about when I wondered, Am I really going to bring up things from before my vasectomy? And what would be the point of that? Pretending to be something that I'm not anymore? To have interests that I no longer have anymore? What exactly would be the point of doing all this? Right? Your past really can hold you back in a rut of guilt and shame. Those words are powerful. A rut of guilt and shame. But you have a choice. You have a choice, right? Or you will accept what happened for what it is and experience the freedom to move on. Self acceptance is critical, it's everything. Self acceptance to your emotional health so you don't miss out. Now, isn't that just powerful? You have the choice to live in the memory. Remember, most of this is imagined, right? I understand that most of the anger that I feel is imagined because the counterpart is not here and will never be here. And if they try to come, I would slam the door in their face with no guilt or remorse, right? I don't even look the same. I have memories of what I used to look like in those times, memories of what things felt like or could have felt like. But in truth, those memories are often exaggerated, misrepresented, and possibly inaccurate, right? My memory of things as a narcissist is always heavily biased towards my point of view. So, why hold on to this delusion? Why hold on to this delusion? Even if I believe I'm right, even if I am right, even if I can prove it, what difference would it make now? What difference would it truly make now as a vasectomite? Make a deal with yourself. I did. Bachelor for life. It's time to make a deal with yourself to let go of the past and live in the present. I'm with you there. Do what you can to make amends, but stop beating yourself up about something that has already happened and quite frankly, you can't do anything to change it. Keep guilt and shame from controlling your thoughts and behavior and decide to accept and respect yourself as you are, despite your screw ups. Now, this is poetry to a narcissist. For many narcissists, this happens almost instantly and instinctively. Right? People think that narcissists don't really feel bad for people. We do, but for a very short period of time, split seconds. Split seconds. And then you go back to loving yourself, respecting yourself, caring for yourself, accepting yourself for who you really are, a practitioner of the deceptive arts. In understanding, you win some, you lose some, but you gotta keep playing the game. You got to keep playing the game. Because if you're not playing the game, you're the one being played. But you have to love yourself, you know? But one of the things that I did was when I started my last romance was really I promised myself that I would never date again. Like as it started, I said, you know what? This is it. This is the last one. I've tried this. I'm not doing this anymore. And it ended, and I haven't dated ever since. Do I have the instinct sometimes to return, to participate, to put my vasectomy to the test and wait patiently so I can use those four magic words? I got a vasectomy. Sure. But really, as for you are mine, I am yours, I'm your boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend, I'm your husband, I'm your wife, I am committed and tied to you somehow, some way, beyond me enjoying the immediate interaction, right? So if I'm not having a good time right now, maybe we'll have a good time later on, but what are the chances that we'll find that out? Right? I mean, I'm not planning on calling anyone back twice. You know what I mean? I'm really like, financially, economically, work wise, I'm calling everybody back as many times as I need to call you. But socially, when I think about the promise that I make and then the steps that I took to ensure that I don't break that promise, because I know myself, right? I made the promise to be the Bachelor Supreme. Not just the Bachelor Supreme. I made the promise that I would remain at the Citadel at the end of time. And then, because I didn't trust myself, I went ahead and got that vasectomy and froze my sperm. And then I was like, well, good luck betraying me now. So even if I did return to the romance wars and betrayed myself, I can't. How? It's all gonna come crashing down as soon as somebody says, I can't get pregnant. And then I say, not by me. Not by me. Learn from it. Learn from what you have experienced. Every day we learn, we update our synapses, we read the statistics. If you haven't seen your counterpart in a year, she's been intimate over 100 times. If it's if it's 5 years, she's heading to 1,000. She's heading to 1,000. Knowing these statistics, knowing these statistics that to return, to revisit the issues, to pick up the fighting, you're just going to the end of what is quite frankly a very, very long line. Why get a vasectomy and then do that? Let the benders do it, man. The one thing you have to know is with your ex or with, the person that is causing you guilt. It's probably with knee benders. Probably would need a benderizing all day. Talking about the future that will never come. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. I don't. I don't. Forgiving myself, rather, he says, forgiving yourself is important for your mental health. But you will only truly grow as a person if you learn from your past experiences and mistakes. When you are in a good place to leave your guilt and shame behind, consider the events that led to those feelings and try to come up with some takeaways so that it doesn't happen again in the future. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. That's how I learned. That's how I learned. I learned my lesson. I realized what I had done. I realized the decision that I had made. But, you know, the Grandmaster says, Sun Tzu, he says, if you are ready for war, but if your soldiers are not ready for war, but the enemy is ready for war, and you fight anyway, you probably only gone halfway to victory. And you're probably going to get routed out. If you are ready for war, but the enemy is not ready for war, but the ground that you are on is not conducive for fighting, you've only gone halfway to victory. Right? So it's one thing to have the idea. It's another to have the mechanism to do it, but it's another to complete the whole thought. I had the vasectomy. I had the idea of getting a vasectomy many years before I got it. I had the money to do it. Not only that, I could have put it on medical insurance and gotten it for free. But I had doubts. If I had doubts, that means others would have doubts in the philosophy. And the doubters would be, do I have choices? And I wouldn't have been able to say, you know what, you can have a reversal. That is not sufficient. That is not a sufficient choice. You need all your biological choices, from freezing your sperm to getting the vasectomy to having the reversal and then returning back to being intimate the traditional way. You have all your your reproductive options, I beg your pardon, by merely following the steps of freezing your sperm and getting a vasectomy. Learn. Learn from your mistakes. Update your synapses and grow. Look at the statistics. You don't even have to look at her phone because her phone is going to be full of lies. Don't look in the eyes. The eyes are full of lies. Look at the statistics. They are telling you the average person is intimate 112 times a year. Even if your counterpart is not getting it in every day. 100 times, 100 opportunities, 20% of those are going to get through. 20% of those are going to get through. You know, and what do they say? They say that people use condoms 20% of the time, which is the time that they cheat, which tells you that people are cheating 20% of the time. Everybody cheats and they cheat 20% of the time. You're gonna get cheated on. You're gonna get played whether you marry, whether you spend money, whether you're an NBA player, Premier League. You're gonna get cheated on whether you're a Premier League player, an NBA player, NFL player, actor, director, lighting guy, sound guy, studio organizer, production manager, whether you work in makeup or costume designs or script writing or editing, wherever you are on the set, whoever you are on the scene, whether you're a shoe salesman, a baker, a candlestick maker, you're all getting played 20% of the time. That's what the statistics say, and that's what you need to accept as reality. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. Our final slide. Why is self forgiveness so hard? Too often people punish themselves for past mistakes as if we could somehow make up the wrong that they've done by doing so. This is true. There's nothing you can do about it. The experience can leave you jaded and cautious. But then you come to a point where I am, where it's time to move forward. Not just move forward, but to move forward. Where even if the person arrived and decided to apologize themselves, it would be awkward for me. If the counterpart called and said, hey, let's go for lunch, it would be awkward. I would not be inclined to go. I'd just say no. I mean, there was a time where I would have been inclined to say, oh, I could get someone pregnant and blah, 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 blah. But you remove the equation of pregnancy altogether, and all that remains is her and her personality. Nah, I don't know. I don't know about all that. I'm not inclined to participate, right? I'm not inclined to participate. There's no making up for lost time, right? There's no making up for lost time. The time that you spent in anger and frustration, the time I spent in anger and frustration, months, weeks, years, however long it takes, I spent that time working out. You know, eventually I knew I would come to a point where I'm still angry, but I want to look good. I want to look good. So, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. I'm glad I spent that time working out rather than, doing something else. Who knows where things could have ended up. But it is time to move forward for me and for you. For me and for you. Self forgiveness should be your first instinct. Myself, I always think about how much I spent, and then I wonder, okay, would you take all that back and hope for a different outcome? Nah, she can keep the money. She can keep the gifts, man. I'm taking the vasectomy. I'm taking the vasectomy 10 out of 10 times. People walk through each day feeling less than, chained to the past and letting the negative emotions we hold on gnaw away at the joy and satisfaction life brings. Oftentimes, the hardest person to forgive is yourself. But self forgiveness is also incredibly important. That's true. The person capable of constantly inhibiting your life satisfaction and well being is yourself. Showing yourself compassion is an integral part of feeling fulfilled and content in life. So try to give yourself the grace you might give others when you fall short or make a mistake. Fantastic. He is such a gifted writer. You know, these PhD types are very underrated, right? It takes years to get a PhD, and you go through all kinds of literary work, all kinds of theories and philosophies, that at the end you have such a wealth of knowledge and depth. And the real problem is that they don't want to give away that wealth and knowledge and depth for free. That's why they're not writing any articles, they're not producing any podcasts, they're not sharing information. And I'm one of those academics. You know, academics, we are very, very, protective of the information that we have, right? So as a graduate and I'm working as a professional and such, even though I know that people could benefit from other insights that I might share that don't necessarily have to do with my life, my corporate existence, and so forth, I'm holding on to that information, right? Because I know the value of it. And here you see a very skilled, capable writer who is very talented at writing articles but probably only wants to publish books. He probably is going to find that he's very good at hitting like 2, 3 page articles that are just so clear and concise as this one. But he knows he's not going to get paid for those. You know, he's better off just writing a book. He has the skill, but writing a book is something completely different. You know, and here in his conclusion, well, in his summary, he says very, very clearly that you gotta forgive yourself and you gotta let go. And it's going to be very difficult if you still have the same consequences to face, right? Like having kids and things like that. Part of that is being able to put yourself beyond the possibility of defeat. Then you know you're not going to repeat the actions. Like, even if I met a counterpart again and we became intimate, it would not be under the same circumstances. Absolutely not. Absolutely not, right? I would not be able, or rather, she would not be able to use things like, oh, but what if I miss my this and that? And what if that didn't come? Because I remember she would say all the time, also, what if my period doesn't come? What if I miss my period? Just constantly planting the idea that, yeah, she might be inseminated, she might be pregnant. Nah, not anymore. Not anymore, right? And having known that I made the right decision by getting a vasectomy, for self forgiveness is really the easiest thing I could do. Because I know that there are many times that I miscalculated, but ultimately it all led to this calculation. And I know that had I made all the other had I got the vasectomy straight out of college, out of university, froze my sperm, got a vasectomy, I would have probably had a completely different scenario. I needed to understand the suffering of tocophobia to be able to appreciate the true value of vasectomy. To know that you can live your whole life in fear, being held down by a phobia, and then liberating yourself from that phobia. You cannot understand the feeling. The bottom line, letting go of past mistakes and guilt is not just about moving on and forgiving yourself. It's about embracing self-compassion and allowing yourself the grace to grow from your experiences. This journey of forgiveness is a powerful step towards healing and finding peace within yourself. If you are struggling to forgive yourself, consider seeking the support of mental health professionals who can help you to overcome those feelings and move forward. Otherwise, take my advice: freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. This has been a very, very useful article, and I really appreciate reading it along with you, and I hope you enjoyed it too. But ultimately, our message remains the same: freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. Release yourself from the guilt of the past in a real and tangible way. It's one thing for you to make a decision and say, I'm never going to make past mistakes again, and then get a text message that somebody thinks they're pregnant. Because then that means absolutely nothing. But if you've truly learned your lessons and you're ready to move on from the past, all of it, all of it, you're looking for that delete button to wash it all away, you gotta freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. Freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. And then you have all your options and you will have peace of mind. Yes, you're probably gonna run wild and act like a fool. You were gonna do that anyway. Right? Now you can do it without consequences. Terrible, life changing, devastating consequences of the dark dimension and legal matrimony. But ultimately, you want a way to release yourself from guilt, as I have, and realize that you may never feel that again unless you choose to. Not from a biological point of view, but unless you choose to feel guilty for someone. But otherwise, you don't need to. Right? You don't need to. These are not your people. You have no biological connection to them. Their fate is not your fate. Nobody's fate is your fate. Your fate is your own. Now that is a liberating feeling to me. Right? Knowing that I'm on the other side of this. I feel fantastic. I feel liberated. I feel free. I feel not not even an ounce of the anchor of guilt pulling me down. Yes, I feel some resentment, I feel some anger, but deep down, I'm going to tell you what I really feel is gratitude for this vasectomy. Because otherwise, I would be still paying those branches. Trying to just survive, just trying to find somebody who doesn't want to get pregnant. And that tells you all about that person. Somebody's out there not wanting to have kids, not wanting to have a family. That means they want to be young, wild, and free. Right? And sometimes, just being a vasectomite doesn't mean that you want that. It might mean you want the option, but it doesn't mean you want to live that way. And if you don't want to live that way, take my advice, freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. This is the end of the video, and again, I want to thank you for your time and your attention, and I really appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. The views are going up, and I've noticed them, and every single view means a lot to me. It really, really does. I don't want to wait, if it happens that I grow tremendously, I don't want to miss the opportunity of had been grateful for having one view. You know that feeling where you get that one view and it turns into two. And you just realize, wait a minute, did I just double my numbers? Right? I just went from, I just got 100% increase on my numbers. Some people don't appreciate growth like that, but I do. I really, really, really do. And should things occur that move things forward, I'd like to have this moment recorded where you know that the Ancient One was very, very grateful for that one single view, because that's the view that made me want to do another video and then another one after that. There are videos with zero views, believe it or not. But it's always the ones with one view that I look at and I fist bump the air and I'm like, one view, it really means that much to me. And I don't want to not have taken the moment to say thank you, and I appreciate it. If you have liked this video, please like it. It still feels awkward for me to ask for likes, but they make me feel good. I don't get paid for them, but they do feel nice, man. They really do. And I appreciate those too. Otherwise, please share this video with anyone you might be thinking is suffering with guilt or just needs to get over themselves, right? Or anyone that you think might enjoy this content. And also, please leave a comment to remain part of the conversation, and I will respond to as many comments as I possibly can. Again, I appreciate your time. I always will. I'm the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, and I'd like to wish you a wonderful wonderful day.